Hi, my name is Grace, and I have an age old question to ask you today. What came first, chicken or egg? Now, for those of you watching from home, feel free to play along, but raise your hand if you think chicken. Raise your hand if you think egg. Okay, but what if I told you the answer was neither, and that there's actually a third option? What if chickens came from the lab? Today, I'm here to tell you about how we can use AI to allow us to create a sustainable solution to conventional poultry farming by taking poultry and growing it in the lab. But in order to understand this, we first need to take a look at the problem. So let's take a moment to step back and talk about why conventional poultry farming is really harmful. So, what do bird flu, the expensive price of eggs, and I know everyone's been talking about that right now, animal cruelty, and the environmental impact and climate change that comes from farming all have in common? Well, all of them show that we have a big problem right now, that our conventional poultry farming practices are really harming the environment. If we take an even closer look, we can see that it accounts for 14.5% of greenhouse gas emissions. Conventional poultry farming allows for the spread of disease, as we've seen currently with bird flu. And we also have the case of violating of these animals' rights for some groups, as well as accelerate our crisis of antibiotic resistance, as a lot of antibiotics are actually used on livestock instead of people. So altogether, this shows that our conventional poultry farming practices are really harmful. But today, there's a solution. This is where the third option comes in. Not egg, not chicken, but what if our poultry came from the lab? Lab grown meat is a solution because it allows for us to bypass the heavy land use, the water use required for conventional farming. It allows us to help avoid the really cramped condition that these animals are kept in. But there's just one problem, because if we're trying to grow these chickens in the lab, it's really expensive right now. In fact, 99% of the cost from lab grown poultry comes from the growth media, which is where the cells are being grown on. And a lot of it is very costly. It's easily contaminated. It's very unethical to even source from, because a lot of these growth media are from slaughtering fetal calves, which is kind of the antithesis to the idea of lab grown poultry, which is where my project comes in. I propose using deep learning techniques to try and optimize growth factors, which is the component in the growth media that allows for us to grow these chicken cells in the lab. If we can optimize them, we can use less. And ultimately, by using less, we can spend less. Let's take a closer look at what exactly I am doing. I propose using the following methodology. First, using deep learning techniques to find optimized structures for these growth factors that we can then test in simulations in a cell-like environment computationally, and finally we can test them actually in the lab to grow our chicken. First, I propose using a sequence-based design. I use EvolvePro, which is a protein language model capable of few-shot active learning. Basically, it means that I can take the chemical structure of these growth factors, put them through EvolvePro multiple times, and it'll calculate the best places for how I can optimize these growth factors to work better. This is something called directive evolution. Then I can put them through simulations where I can test them on my computer computationally by modeling a cell-like environment, the chemical and physical properties of the cell, to see how my optimized growth factors work with their receptors. And finally, I can test them in the lab. I can take the calculated binding energy from my simulations of my optimized growth factors and test them in the lab with actual poultry. Well, unfortunately, I wasn't able to actually fully go through with my project. I was able to get some preliminary results. Using EvolvePro, I took three big growth factors. A lot of these have been implicated in countless papers and literature for allowing for cell growth, cell differentiation, and proliferation. Basically, a lot of good things that we want if we want to grow poultry in the lab. And I was able to identify a couple places where I can optimize these growth factors to ultimately get an activity increase from 6 to 14%. Ultimately, this shows that deep learning and different AI techniques can allow us to build for a more sustainable future. By using the techniques that I outlined in this talk, we can use it to allow us to create lab-grown poultry as an actual scalable, sustainable alternative. Remember, this is important because it helps us address some key issues such as climate change, disease spread by animals, as well as issues regarding animal rights. And ultimately, we can say that our solution is truly winner, winner, chicken for dinner. But let's take a step back. Say you completely missed what I said with AI and all these technologies. Let's take a step back. And the most important thing I want you to take away today is that we all live on this planet. We all have to eat food. And yet, coming from Indiana, agricultural research is fairly underlooked. When we think of AI, we think of chatbots. When we think of AI, we think of trying to find the best cancer drug. And those are all very important and valiant efforts. But at the end of the day, we all eat food. We all live on this planet. And agriculture is equally important. So today, I urge you, if there's one message you take away from today, that the future of AI is also in agriculture. And I urge you to keep with the chickens and winner, winner, chicken for dinner. Thank you.